Adonai Ose Shamayim Va'aretz Ezri Meim Adonai Ose Shamayim Va'aretz Ayitein lamod lamod raglecha Ayanum shomrecha Hine lo yanu elo ishan Shomer Yisrael Adonai shomrecha Adonai tzilcha yad yeminecha Adonai shomrecha Adonai tzilcha yad yeminecha Yomam HaShemesh lo yakeka ve'yareach balayla Adonai yishmorcha mikora Yishmor et nafshecha Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvoecha me'ata ve'ad olam Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvoecha me'ata ve'ad olam Amekoma tavo v'shalom. Song for those who ascend. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way, your guardian will not slumber. You see, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian, your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. God will guard your going and coming now and forever. May Sharon Guralnick go to God in peace. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Dayan haemet. Hatzur tamim, Paulo kichol rachav mishpat, el emunah v'einav, el tzadik v'yashar hu. Tzadik atah Adonai lamidu l'achayot, asher biyadcha pikaron koruchot chalilacha, zichronenu limchot. V'hiyu na'inech b'rachamim aleinu v'kuchot, ki lecha Adon harachamim v'haslichot. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yishem Adonai mevorach. V'hu rachum yechaper avon v'lo yashchid b'ir shiva po, v'lo ya'ir kol chamato. V'yashov ve'afar la'aretz she'aya, ve'aruach tashuv, Ela Elohim asher netana. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God who gave it. May our beloved soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal, and may God send comfort to those who mourn and grant strength to those whose burden is sorrow. We are here today to honor, to remember, and to say goodbye to Sharon Guralnick. As she was known in Hebrew by the name Sarah Leah Bat Yosef Vetova, the daughter of Joseph and Gwen Sector, Zichronam Livracha, of blessed memory. Sharon passed away Monday after a battle with cancer. It was the 8th day in the Hebrew month of Cheshvan. She was 70 years old. She will be deeply missed by her husband of 52 years, Sam, by her children, Michael and Rebecca, Jason and Carrie, Melanie and Benji, by her grandchildren, Josh, Seth, Miles, Gabe, Max, Jack, and Leo. By her siblings, Harvey and Sandra, David and Patrick. By her nieces and nephews, Alan, Joel, Beth, and their spouses and their families. Sharon was predeceased by her parents, as well as her brother Mondo. We begin our service this morning with the recitation of psalms and readings, linking Sharon's life with thousands of years of Jewish tradition and with the eternity of God. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, bino deshe yarbitzeni al mei menucho, yenahaleni nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo, Kam ki elech begeit sama velo irara ki atai madi, shiftecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni, taroch lefanai shulchanei etzorai, dishanta v'Hashem en roshi kohosi rivaya. Ach tov achesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, Eshavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim. A Psalm of David. Adonai, God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside the still waters, and restores my soul, guides me on the right path, for that is God's nature. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and loving kindness shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. We are very fortunate today to have a number of family members who will speak and share eulogies and personal reflections that demonstrate something that so many people here today and so many of the people who are tuned in online, for whom we are very, very thankful, already know, which is that Sharon Guralnick throughout her life touched many, many lives. And while it is incredibly tragic and deeply sad for a life to be cut down in its prime, years before it should be, we are reminded this morning and going forward of a very important Jewish teaching that we read in Proverbs, Mishlei. The human spirit is the light of God, that within each of us God implants a divine spark, that each of us has an obligation to tend this spark, to fan it into a flame that will light up one's own life as well as the lives of others. A lit candle can be snuffed out, or it can burn out, but it can also kindle other candles. When a flame is passed on to others, that flame continues to burn long after the original candle has been extinguished. For me, if I may begin with my own personal reflection, I first came to know of Sharon, and it makes sense as I look over at everyone in their orange toques, as a woman who stood out to me from the Bima for many years as a young man growing up in the congregation Sharon Zedek on high holidays, by her unmistakable, brightly colored hair. It was a reflection of her personality, to be unique, to stand out, to want to be different, to want to be the first to have anything, whether it was a pair of glasses, an outfit, or her ever-changing, always noticeable special hair. In many ways, this hair is a metaphor for the way she lived her life. That while she was quiet, a good listener, more than a talker, and could often be reserved, that she stood out among her family and her friends as someone who could be trusted, as someone who was loyal, as someone who was always prepared, as someone who thrived in chaos, whether it was the chaotic kitchen, getting ready for a big family simcha, the bigger the better, or the chaos of preparing for a trip, and her packing rituals, and her repacking rituals, and her overpacking rituals, and her repacking rituals. She was born December 6, 1949. Her family moved from Brandon when she was still a baby, and she grew up in the 1950s and 60s in Winnipeg's South End. She was one of the first students enrolled at the Herzliya Day School, then later Ramah, River Heights, and Kelvin. She was the youngest of 4 children, and the only daughter, the light of her parents' lives. She grew up in a family with siblings, many years separating some of them, a lot of separate, unique, boldly expressive personalities. And while she was usually with the tendency to be the quiet, reserved one, in time, her family and future generations and friends came to know that this was really just a demonstration of her resolve, of her strength, and her commitment to family, no matter how outrageous many of them may be acting. In time, they realized that she was the glue of the sector family, and that she passed this on to future generations in her own Guralnick family. Her career as a student at University College was cut quite short when she was introduced to Sam Guralnick. It was a bit of a mixed relationship of sorts, since he hailed from the North End. But she quickly became friends with his fraternity pals, and he quickly became acquainted with her friends. Many of these relationships have continued to this day and remain stronger than ever. And the two of them quickly fell in love. They were married young in 1968 in Israel, and before they knew it, they had 3 children born in 3 places and were raising a young family in Winnipeg. There was Michael, born in Israel, Jason, born in Regina during the 1.5 years when Sharon and Sam lived there, and then Melanie in Winnipeg. And the family grew together, first from a home on Ash Street, where neighbors and families nearby were brought into their social circle. Again, friendships that have stood the test of time, and then on to the family home on Park. She was a woman who had many passions in life, whether it was Hollywood and celebrities, television, scary movies, which of course she would fast forward through to learn how they ended and then rewind to watch them, the royal family, tennis, golf, horses, boats, Falcon Lake, where she had fond memories growing up when her family bought a cottage in the 60s and where she later took her own children, even though she really hated bugs. But her greatest passion in life was for the people in her life. Her friends, with whom she kept secrets, listened, cared for, and quickly became the one that they all turned to. Whether it was as a nana, a grandmother, who knew how to speak to all of her grandsons in their language, in their time, always staying up as the hippest, coolest grandmother. Or as a mother, thriving in the kitchen as a baker or cooker, trying to transmit some of these lessons, but being able to take over in her own way in all situations, especially with the bigger and better crowds. And as a go-to in times of trouble to soften the situation before the news would get to Sam. I offer this just by way of introduction before we have the opportunity to hear eulogies from members of the family, people who knew Sharon and saw her at her absolute best. I know Miles is going to speak on behalf of the grandchildren, and on behalf of the children we'll hear from Melanie and also from Michael, and then finally we'll have an opportunity to hear from Sam. And so now I will turn things over for our hesped, our eulogy, first from Miles.
My friends from home all know her as my grandma with the red hair, my grandma with Snapchat, or my grandma with the Bitmoji. We know her as Nana. Nana was spontaneous. She always kept her pool at a boiling 90 degrees Fahrenheit. She acquired free downloads of movies that had just been released in theaters a week prior. She had a Nintendo Wii, and it became a family tradition to compete in Wii Fit and Wii Sports Resort games. Bowling was always the fam favorite. Nana loved pop music, and she once spent hours trying to make the Pitbull and Christina Aguilera song Feel This Moment her cell phone ringtone, only to decide that what she actually wanted it to be was a different Pitbull song, Timber featuring Kesha. And I might add, both of these ringtones were acquired from the internet. She truly was one of a kind. Nana was a great cook and baker. She made hearty oatmeal, delectable Maui ribs, juicy skirt steak, and sweet haroset. She baked excellent moon cookies, which were thin and crispy. And of course, she made the best brownies ever to exist on this earth. Nana was smart. A genius, really. She was always on top of the latest and greatest in technology and innovation around the world. She was hyper-aware of news regarding Apple software updates, to the point that she never really updated her devices. For her, there was always another bug that needed to be fixed before she would do it. Recently, she was proud of the fact that she was doing a contact tracing program for COVID-19. She was a homie. Nana had 7 grandsons, and we made sure to remind her of it. The days we spent at her house were often filled with Marco Polo, steam showers, buttermilk kiggle, spilled dwinks, and half-hearted apologies. You always knew how she felt by the way she said your name, assuming, of course, she said the right name. Between Mike, Mel, Max, and Miles, as well as Jay, Jack, and Josh, you never really knew which one you were getting. Sometimes if you were lucky, she even threw in a Seth, Gabe, or Leah. When Nana was excited about something, she'd say, Miles. For example, Miles, did you see the new iPad? It looks great. I'm still gonna wait for the next one though. For reference, she had already been waiting for 3 years. Sometimes she would be a bit more unclear. She might say, Miles, which could mean she either had a question or more likely she was questioning something you were doing. Gabe and I got that a lot when we were playing around. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my all-time favorite name-calling of hers. This was the infamous Sam! And by God, if you heard that, you knew we were all in trouble. Nana loved the weather. She knew what storm was headed your way before meteorologists forecasted it. More importantly, though, she could name 5 different places that had better weather than where she was. And she was always adamant that she had brought the bad weather with her. I must say, I'm kind of thankful for that. One winter, when our parents were abroad, Nana and Zeta stayed with us during an extreme blizzard in Milwaukee. That snowstorm gave us the opportunity to do some backyard exploring that became characteristic of our relationship. I received a message from Nana on Snapchat on February 7th, 2020, during a particularly bad snowstorm in Toronto. She said, "Are you snowed in? Here, in Sydney, British Columbia, it is non-stop rain. Might have to move to Antarctica." We all know she'd be having a field day if she was here in Winnipeg today. Something I will always remember Nana for is her appreciation for music. She was fascinated by the piano, and it was a treat for my brother and me to be able to perform for her. This was a major motivation for me in keeping up with it. I loved when she would sit down at our piano in Milwaukee and mess around on it for a bit. She had the gift of being able to read music, and it was a pleasure to be able to share that with her. I closed with another message she sent me on Snapchat. This one was from January 26th, 2020. She and Zeta had attended a concert that night. She said, "Just came from a James Bond symphony concert. They played all the songs and had a singer too. It was great. I like watching the trumpet players and also the guy on the triangle. Can't imagine what the notes look like for the triangle." Nana, you always ask the tough questions, and I love you for that. I sure will miss you. We are a resilient family, and we will always stick together, just as we did when you truly were the glue that kept us connected.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Things happen for a reason. Trust the universe. I believe in that stuff. Nothing will justify the suffering that my mom endured these last 4 months, or the terrible loss and sadness that we all feel right now. But I believe deep down that there is a profound reason it all happened. At a time when COVID has made it impossible to be close to those we love, I got to spend every day with my mom. In the past 4 months, our family has grown stronger and more supportive of one another. And look at me and my dad. I've never spent this much time with him, and my kids love having him at our house. My dad said to me the other night when we were driving back from Sydney, "I've never in my life heard 'I love you' so many times." He said, "I didn't grow up giving away 'I love yous.' I don't give them away freely. I reserve them for those I truly love." So I told him that all these people, his family and his dearest friends, are saying I love you to him because they truly do love him. People have shown up for us in every way, and it's been a beautiful thing. So as cheesy as all this sounds, and with a broken heart full of sadness, I have never felt so much love. I have received a slew of messages and calls. Food and meals are constantly being dropped off at my house. Flowers, emails, and texts every day. I'm blown away by the outpouring of kindness from old friends I haven't spoken to in 20 years, and the calls from my parents' friends who knew me growing up thanking me for taking care of my mom when they couldn't be here to help. And of course, my amazing group of friends back in Vancouver who have doted and spoiled us each and every day throughout all of this. Even in all of this tragedy, I choose to see the beauty and the blessings. In every pink sky, in every orange sunset, and from now on, in every fall, when I'm surrounded by bright red and orange leaves, at least that's how it looks like in Vancouver right now, I can be reminded of how beautiful my mom made the world for me. I also have a couple of notes from the boys back in Vancouver. Leo says that Nana had the best hair and she really liked orange, and he was really happy to have been able to make a special drawing for her to look at in the hospital. Max says that Nana was always really kind and loving, and he could always find her in a crowd. She had the best taste in TV shows and movies, and she really meant a lot to us. Jack loved walking in the forest with her and playing board games together. And Benji said during the past year, it was a special treat to have her so close to us in BC. It made him so happy to see her enjoying his dinners at our house. Her barbecue skills were off the charts, and she made the very best oatmeal. We loved spending time together, and we will continue her traditions with our family. We love you.
Still somewhat old school. I'm finding it very difficult to verbally express my feelings right now, but I'm going to try. Most importantly, I'm grateful that we are all able to be here today, even if it is at a distance. Leave it to Mom to get the family together during a pandemic. Many families who've lost loved ones these past 8 months haven't been so fortunate to be together or even have a funeral. I do not take this for granted, but that's what meant most to her, being together with family. I'm just going to speak to a few memories of my mom that I will cherish forever. In no specific order. When I was a kid, I'll never forget how excited I was when Mom was the hot lunch mother at Ramah. It would be on a Wednesday, and they'd serve hot dogs, and everyone's mother would take turns helping to serve. So when it was Mom's turn, while I was trying to remain cool around my friends, inside I was always so excited to have her at school. It was a similar excitement I'd have when we'd be out at Falcon Lake with Nana and Grandpa, and then a few times my mom and dad would drive up for a visit. You just wanted to show them everything you were doing, and we'd usually get a water ski out of her. She could even slalom. Also, growing up on Ash Street, we had certain routines when it came to meals. Monday nights were often minute steak, Thursday nights would be the Pancake House, Friday nights was Shabbos dinner at Bob and Zeta's, and Saturday night was often McDonald's before my folks would go out for the evening. But don't get me wrong, Mom was a great cook, and I will forever crave her barbecued chicken wings, sweet and sour meatballs, and roast turkey. And she made the most amazing moon cookies and the greatest brownies ever. I still won't let Becca give away that recipe. Ash Street was also where we would stay up late on the weekend to watch horror movies, especially vampire movies and Godzilla movies. She just loved those movies, and we loved watching with her. Of course, you'd get either a running commentary about the movie or else she'd keep asking why a person was doing such and such a thing, or why was this happening. She would routinely turn down the volume anytime a movie was getting scary and you knew something bad was going to happen. Then with the advent of VCR, she was able to fast forward through those scenes and could then rewind them once she knew what was going to happen. And now with computers all around, all she had to do was go online and she could read about the entire plot and any scary parts, so she was prepared before she even started the movie. I'll always cherish the time I recently got to spend with her in Sydney while she was ill. We watched the most recent Godzilla movie on her bed. I felt like my 10-year-old self. Mom welcomed Becca into our family with open arms, for which I'm grateful. And then when the boys arrived, she was an amazing grandmother. She was a hip, cool Nana who was adept at using social media with the kids and knew the lingo. They loved FaceTiming with her, and she looked younger than all the other grandmothers with her wild hair and youthful skin. The boys were so excited to see her and Dad when they'd visit us in Milwaukee and come to stay with the boys while Beck and I traveled. We've had a couple of fantastic Guralnick family reunions recently with Max's bar mitzvah in Kelowna and our Mexican extravaganza over Christmas and New Year's in 2018, where we celebrated their 50th anniversary and my 50th birthday. We're especially grateful to have had both sets of grandparents visit Milwaukee when Gabe was the lead in the high school musical earlier this year. COVID prevented the planned subsequent visit for graduation, but at least we got to be together in February. Mom was also by my side, along with Becca, when I was first diagnosed and underwent treatment for lymphoma. She dropped everything and flew to Milwaukee when we flew back from a visit in Winnipeg and was there for my first round of chemo and returned several times that year. It definitely helped us during that difficult time. She made this happen for me. I'm grateful that we were able to be with her during her ordeal. I just wish we could have been present more. But the thing that sticks with me the most is her love for Dad and his love for her. They were teenage sweethearts and managed to stick it out together for more than 50 years. They really were best friends. And sure, they had their arguments, but they were generally short-lived, always succumbing to their love and friendship. Given the circumstances at the time of my birth, I feel partly responsible for us becoming a family, and I can't tell you how lucky and privileged I feel to have parents like them. I know not all couples in a similar situation do well, and many end up with a divided family. But not only did ours survive, we thrived. Undoubtedly in part because of the amazing support from the entire Sector Guralnick clan. As far as I'm concerned, I had the best upbringing anyone could ask for. I didn't want for anything, and for that, Mom and Dad, I'm forever grateful. Mom, I will miss you forever and never forget you. I love you. And just a couple of final thoughts. I want to thank my brother Jay for keeping an eye on my folks in Winnipeg when we moved away to Milwaukee. It was very reassuring to have you close by to them. And I especially want to acknowledge and thank my sister, Melody. You were an amazing caregiver and shouldered a major burden for the past few months. Mom couldn't have been better cared for, and I know she appreciated all that you did for her. I'm eternally grateful that you were able to help like you did. I love you and am proud to have you as a sister. And when the time comes, hopefully not for a little while though, I can't think of a better person to take on the mantle of Nana and follow the footsteps of two truly exceptional women.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you who are here this morning, those of you who are watching on video, and everyone who reached out to us in the past several months by phone, text, and email. Your support, prayers, encouragement, and love were greatly appreciated. In life, one often forgets or misses the chance to thank and acknowledge people who played an important role in their lives. In death, there is no chance to do it. So on behalf of Sharon, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank some of the most important people in her life. First, her brother Harvey and sister-in-law Sandra. They have always been there for us. Next, her brother David and partner Patrick. She loved being with them, whether it was in New York or Long Beach. We talked about visiting them in Hawaii once we were rid of the pandemic. Her Aunt Lil, who was more of an older sister, was our neighbor on Ash Street. Then Gordy Kay and Sharon Zalick. Gordy was and continues to be like a brother, and Sharon has become a truly good friend. Robert Brumer from Montreal, who was like a younger brother to me and with whom we traveled. Harold and Karen Singer. Harold was one of Sharon's oldest and dearest friends. Although they live in New York, Sharon would speak to Harold daily. Harold and Karen came to Vancouver last weekend and were with us when Sharon passed. Linda DeVeris from Minneapolis, a great friend of Sharon's who we would visit on our way to and from Milwaukee. Sharon and Linda spent a lot of time together in Palm Springs. They would go every Saturday and Sunday to the flea market from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. when it closed, and would buy virtually nothing. But they enjoyed themselves. I didn't have the patience to go with them. Alan and Linda Finkelman, who became our friends about 40 years ago when our kids were going to school together. Then they became our machatinim, but they will always be our friends. They drove to Vancouver a week earlier than planned so they could be with us and help us in any way they could. They came to the hospital twice a day to spell me off so I could get something to eat or rest. Jack and Belleville, London, our other machatinim, and also good friends. Then there's Ted Barron and his wonderful wife Carol Ann, who passed away last year, and their daughter Jennifer. Carol Ann and Sharon were partners in a retail store and were best of friends. Over the years, Ted and I had no choice but to become very close friends. In the last 10 years, and probably a little more, Paulette and Lauren Weiss became two of our closest friends. Paulette and Sharon were inseparable. You dropped them off at a Winners or a Marshall's in the morning, and you wouldn't see them till late in the day. Cyril and Helen Keston were friends of mine from my youth. We kept in touch even though they lived in Regina and we were in Winnipeg. They were responsible for us moving to the West Coast. Shailene and Jerry Newman. Shailene and Sharon grew up a block apart and have been friends for over 60 years. Philippa and Aubrey Kaplan and their terrific sons Daniel and Alan. Philippa was our neighbor 50 years ago on Ash Street. She and Sharon have remained dear friends ever since. For the past few months, Philippa would text me daily for updates and reports on Sharon's health. She drove me crazy. Then there are Cheryl and Dane Hershberg. We go back with them 50 years also from Ash Street. Although they moved to Toronto, we continue to stay in touch and miss them dearly. There are a number of other good friends of mine that became close friends with Sharon over the years, included Howie and Lindy Greenberg, David and Brenda Rusin, Bill and Faye Brownstone, Larry and Elena Safer, Saul and Freya Targovnik, and there were many, many more. But I leave for Vancouver on Sunday, and I haven't broached the most important people. First, there are Sharon's nephews and niece, Alan Sector, Joel Sector, and Beth Paul Steinberg and their families. In many ways, they were like our own kids. They referred to my mother as Baba and my father as Zeta. Sharon loved them and their spouses and kids dearly. She so enjoyed seeing them and spending time with them. Finally, there are our kids, their spouses, and our grandsons. We were blessed. You couldn't get any better. We've always been so proud of each and every one of them. We were fortunate that Mike and Becca and Jason and Carrie were able to come to Vancouver a couple of times during Sharon's illness. It meant the world to her seeing them. Last, I would like to say something about our daughter Melanie. I doubt that there is a finer human being on this earth. She was her mother's best friend. I think I was second best. During the last 3 weeks that Sharon was in the hospital, and for much of that time in terrible pain, Melanie was with her from early morning to late in the evening. Sharon loved life and wanted to live forever. Over the years, we attended numerous funerals, and we always listened very closely to the eulogies. We always wondered what would be said about us when our time came. I always thought that I would go first, so I told Sharon to make sure nice things were said about me, even if they were exaggerations or not quite true. Well, it didn't work out that way. What I will say is true and not an exaggeration. As Lou Gehrig said, I am the luckiest person on the face of the earth. I was married to the most wonderful person ever. I miss you dearly already. Will always love you. Rest in peace.
To everyone who spoke today, thank you for sharing these words, these eulogies, these reflections. You all spoke so beautifully, so tenderly from the heart, communicating that something I've learned and I've said before at funerals. Mourning is the price we pay for having the courage to love others. There is no question we can feel the love here today and the way it has been expressed. And for people who are watching on the broadcast, in these strange times where Shiva and our traditional 1,000-year-old rituals for dealing with grief and death elude us, we still have the power of technology to communicate and to share by reaching out with phone calls, text messages, and emails. And I encourage everyone watching, as well as those who are here, to continue sending these messages of love, to join their hearts together with those in Sharon's family and close group of friends who are in mourning and in grief. It is my honor now to recite the memorial prayer, the Omalei Rachamim, on behalf of Sharon Guralnick. Sarah Leah, Bat Yosef Etova. the daughter of Joseph and Gwen. El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hamsei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina B'malo Kedoshim Uteorim Kezoar Arakia Mazhirim Et Nishmat Sara Leah Bat Yosef Tova Shelcha Leolama Began Eidente Menuchatan Abal Harachamim Hastirea Beseter Knafecha Leolamin Utzror Pitzror Achaim Enishmata Adonai hu nachlata betanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen. El Malei Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Sharon Guralnick, Sara Leah Bat Yosef Tova, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that she, our loved one, find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. In the spirit of the El Malei Rachamim, I offer this as well. O God, full of compassion, please send your comfort to those who grieve. Help them to dispel the sadness that accompanies the pain of loss, and to focus and find joy in the precious memories of their beloved Sharon. May your love inspire them to focus on the love they have had for her and the love she has had for them. Help them to face the future with courage, to treasure Sharon's beautiful, inspirational legacy. Sustain us in our faith, O God, even in this troubling time, as you have sustained our people in times of trouble and sorrow throughout generations. Blessed are you, Adonai, who provides comfort to the brokenhearted. We turn now to the words of the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'gala uv'izman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivorach le'alam u'lamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudsha b'richu, leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May the one who creates peace and harmony on high bring peace and harmony to us, to all Israel, and to all of humanity. And again, let us say, Amen. I thank again everyone who has been a part of our broadcast We'll be concluding the broadcast portion now and concluding our service here with a private burial. In Jewish tradition, we conclude our funeral services with a shoveling of earth to cover our loved ones. With this act, we take on the responsibility of caring for our loved ones until the very end, because we believe our loved ones deserve to be buried by our own hands, hands that once held their hands, kind, knowing, sorrowful. It is a painful act, we recognize, but its inspiration is an act born of love and compassion for someone who meant so much to so many people. With Job, we have said, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, yehi shem Adonai mevorach. God, you have given, God, you have taken away. Blessed be the name of God. May the memory of Sharon Guralnick be a blessing, as we mark today and going forward that her essence will never leave our hearts and our souls. We understand that grief and love go hand in hand, that the pain which loss inflicts is the measure of a love stronger than death. And to the family we say, Hamakom yinachem etchem b'toch sha'ar evelei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May you be comforted and consoled among all those in our community who are in mourning or who have ever been in mourning, as together we go forward to peace, to life, and in time to healing. Thank you again, everyone. I invite the immediate family to come forward and begin.